Here's how in under 2 years I went from a college sophomore sitting 89 to 90, topping 92, from a 4'4" release height with an 82-mile-an-hour sweeper, routinely at 20-plus inches of horizontal break, to a junior in college sitting 87 to 89, topping out at 91 just once, to then being a senior in college, sitting 86, 88, topping out at 89.5 miles an hour twice, without a single 90 all year long. As my role grew from a sophomore, throwing 0 innings, to a junior throwing multiple times every weekend, I initially handled this well out of the gate with a 3.3 ERA across 8 innings of work in less than 3 weeks and a 12-9 strikeout to walk ratio. With my shoulder being unprepared to handle the workload that was demanded of me, I scattered just 6.1 innings for the remainder of the year after this point, with an impressive but laughable 15 walks to just 6 punchies. Once the season ended, I was spinning my wheels in an effort to gain this velocity that had completely plateaued. This was capped by one session in particular, where I went from 84 miles an hour to 90 miles per hour, with just one velo slap in the next throw. Without a velo slap, I was back down to 86, another velo slap back up to 90.3 miles an hour. Instead of being sensible and going to see a doctor, I decided that I could just deload and strengthen my arm to handle the forces that I was completely unwilling to accept. Although this is better than continuing endless velocity phases, it did allow me a long toss PR and starting out with my fall ball with 5 strikeouts and no walks in my first 2 innings. However, this didn't last. By the end of the fall, I could barely throw 85, 86 without excruciating pain and finally decided to get an MRI. After a few days and multiple doctor's visits later, I learned about multiple avulsion fractures in my ulna, one of the largest bone spurs I've ever seen, that caused a ruptured tricep tendon on one side and ruptured through my UCL on the other side. The bone spur, combined with debris from the fracture, contributed to tenosynovitis of the flexor tendon. After learning about this, with less than 3 months until the season begins, my only thought was, how can I earn a weekend rotation role? And Jared Slater was the only person who was equally crazy to believe that this was a reality for me. While other physical therapists said, quote, "It sounds like it would hurt to brush his teeth, let alone throw a baseball." So I flew down to Charleston to work with Jared in person and went from an excruciating 80 to 86 to a painful but bearable 85, 87 after just 2 days of work. And continuing throughout the rest of the week, I was thrown up to 89.5 miles an hour just the next week. The demands of nursing my elbow, pushing work in the weight room, 19 credits of an overloaded academic calendar while going to war with Chem 2, getting accepted into every doctorate program that I applied to, training dozens of athletes remotely, and obviously playing, all caught up to me and I was unable to maintain this progression. I dealt with pain that was so bad I was often on the mound thinking about how can I get this to hurt less and not how can I throw strikes and get the hitters out. This led to an outing in March where I had blown out and had to come out of the game in the middle of a batter. Although thoughts of my career being over entered my mind at this point, it didn't last long and I was trying everything I could possibly do to get back just the next day. There were less than 2 months in the season and I lost over 30 degrees of elbow extension, so my last resort at this point is to accumulate as much throwing volume as I could with my left hand. My thought process was to offset the unilateral sensory input imbalances that my brain was receiving, along with potentially offsetting some of the postural and pressural based effects of throwing. After fighting to not let my trainer see what my elbow looks like on an MRI, 2 more weeks of work went by. By the 3rd week, I was throwing in a conference game again. From this point on, I accumulated another 11.2 innings pitched, up to another 89.5 on the mound, consistently topping 88 week in and week out. Although some days required layers of wasabi hot, 700 milligrams of caffeine, 1.2 grams of aspirin, and 1,000 or more milligrams of Tylenol just to get through the outings. With my last college baseball game behind me this past weekend, I'm excited to channel this level of psychosis into my doctorate of physical therapy, where I'll be able to help athletes avoid going through what I went through, which was blowing out as a sophomore in high school, having to come back on myself through COVID, and now needing at least a Tommy John surgery plus a little bit extra work in there as well.